This is Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. I'm Pia Ontiveros. Tonight on the program, with the COVID-19 pandemic comes another threat. The country reports its first case of monkeypox, a viral disease recently declared as a global health emergency. 2 days after a magnitude 7 earthquake hit Abra province, authorities retrieved the remains of 4 people buried alive in a landslide. And Blinks are ready for love. The new song from K-pop group Blackpink is now out. We begin tonight with the threat of another virus. The Philippines confirming its first case of monkeypox, a virus rapidly spreading in other countries. Rex Remigio tells us about the patient who caught the disease abroad.
It's not particularly fatal, but it is of concern. Coming from the palace, it's an assurance and warning about the confirmation of first monkeypox case in the country. The health department reports the first infection is that of a 31-year-old Filipino. The person has a travel history to countries with documented monkeypox cases and arrived on July 19th. An RT-PCR test confirmed the presence of monkeypox. The DOH did not say why the patient was tested.
We will not be divulging any more of the clinical information because that's all within the purview now of the specialist who's looking at them.
The DOH did not identify the patient's gender or location, except that the person is in isolation and under monitoring at home. The DOH has identified 10 close contacts, including 3 from the same household. They have no symptoms for now. The World Health Organization has declared monkeypox a public health emergency of international concern. Monkeypox is related to smallpox but less severe. It originated from animals and can be transmitted to humans through close contact. The President has ordered agencies to educate the public on the disease. Press Secretary Trixie Angeles describes the current situation.
First of all, it's only one case, number one. Number two, as you can see, it doesn't affect the entire population. Number three, this is not like COVID that can be spread by air very easily and could possibly be fatal. This is not particularly fatal, but it is of concern.
The DOH says surveillance systems are enough to detect cases. Aside from temperature screening, authorities might require arriving passengers to remove their jackets to check for rashes. Those with symptoms will be isolated for 2 to 3 weeks. Health officials say the spread of monkeypox can be prevented by minimizing sexual contact with suspected cases, especially those with rashes or open wounds. They also advise the public to keep hands clean, wear face masks, cover the mouth when coughing using the back of the elbow, and stay in areas with good ventilation. The DOH tells the public to consult health professionals for symptoms like fever, swollen lymph nodes, or rashes. Rex Remigio, CNN Philippines.
Meron pa, meron pa!
Search teams have retrieved the remains of 4 people buried alive in a landslide in Abra. The magnitude 7 earthquake that hit the province Wednesday morning triggered that landslide in Luba town. Education officials in the region say the victims, one of their students in Luzon National High School, a 21-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a foreman. Officials said the victims were on their way to work when the incident happened. Abra is under a state of calamity as people suffer from the earthquake aftermath. Experts from FIVOLX are assessing damage and land hazards in the province. They say results of their study will help local governments carry out recovery plans. FIVOLX has recorded over 1,000 aftershocks. Authorities record 6 deaths and 136 injuries. Nearly 19,500 people were affected. The estimated cost of damage to infrastructure is now at 48.3 million pesos. The magnitude 7 tremor not only destroyed houses and government buildings in Abra, it also damaged important heritage sites like the centuries-old Catholic Church in Tayum town, the epicenter. Our George Quiles joins us live from nearby Bangued town. Go ahead, George.
Opia, experts have yet to check the safety of the St. Catherine of Alexandria Church in Tayum, but with just the naked eye, one may see the possible danger to occupants. The local priest says the restoration will need a huge amount, so the parish is appealing for help, including the national government, to rebuild the heritage site. This is the Santa Catalina de Alejandría Parish Church in Tayum, Abra. After more than 2 centuries of witnessing history unfold at the town center, this heritage site was not spared from the destructive magnitude 7 earthquake. Portions of the bell tower crumbled, major cracks on the facade, and the plaster reinforcement chipped off, exposing the original brick wall. This is how the interior of the St. Catherine of Alexandria Church looks like right now. So during the quake, a portion of the retablo or the center altar collapsed. And over here, we may also see the side altar, a portion of this, as well as a portion of the pillar also collapsed during the quake.
It's not good to use dahil sa daming cracks. Yung mga cracks dito sa labas, diretso na yun hanggang sa loob. And itong mga wall niya is 3 to 4 feet thick. So ganun kalalim yung mga cracks.
Volunteer catechist Rosemary Milyari turns emotional seeing the devastation inside the church building.
Wala na yung nilalagyan ko ng kortina. Wala na yung pinupunasan kong stadium ni St. Catherine doon po sa pinakamataas na parte.
Parishioner Alejandria de Grano is still in shock. De Grano says she was named after the church patron saint, Catherine of Alexandria, making it a sanctuary for her personal and spiritual life.
Opo, wala na po akong ibang alam na pupuntahan sa kahirapan ng aming buhay, kundi sa simbahan. Opo. Kahit wala po kaming pagkain noon, kasi mahirap lang nga po kami. Pupunta ako dyan sa simbahan, naglilinis yan ang linilinis ko.
Portions of De Grano's house also suffered damages, but she's still thankful that her entire family is safe.
Habang po lumilindol pa ng mga sunod-sunod, nagro-rosaryo pa kami sa ilalim ng mesa. Eto lang, yung naiisip kong kasama namin po. Binigyan ko na ng mga apo ko, ng mga ganito. Kinuha namin sa altar namin na nagsiliparan na.
De Grano says her faith in God keeps her strong, and she believes the church building will rise from the ruins to be a refuge for the faithful in troubled times again. Abra is under a state of calamity, and the local government says it needs assistance to rebuild private and public structures. Earlier, Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office General Manager Mel Robles visited Bangged and Danglas towns to hand over an ambulance, food packs, and medicine to survivors.
Nag-resonate pa yung sona ng Pangulo that yung na biktima ng kalamidad, huwag nang pahirapan. No? So, dali-dali, pinadala namin dito. And sabi nga, while we were waiting or speaking, dumindol pa nga, and you were here. So talagang kailangan. There is urgency. Yun ang namin napatunayan.
Local officials here in Abra hope people will be able to have a sense of normalcy in a week. Back to you, Pia.
George Gilas there reporting from Abra. In Ilocos Sur, the local government of Vigan is rushing the damage assessment of the city's historical landmarks so it can decide on how soon it can accommodate tourists who come to visit its famous heritage sites. Senior correspondent David Santos joins us from Vigan. David, what are the challenges the city is facing in having to inspect these popular tourist attractions?
Well, Pia, we're here at Governor A. Reyes Street, site of an abandoned ancestral home that has been reduced to rubble following Wednesday's powerful quake. Now, aside from insufficient resources and equipment, the city government also has to deal with limited personnel to do safety checks on hundreds of historical buildings and business establishments before its thriving tourism industry can return to normal. The Vigan city government hard at work trying to salvage what it can.
Meron mga na-identify na houses na hindi na siya livable for as of the moment.
The city has assembled teams of volunteer experts, architects, engineers, and conservationists. Their job, inspect about 250 ancestral houses and historical buildings within Vigan's popular heritage sites. Bed and breakfast owner Charmaine Lim has been trying to get her place among those to be checked. She's hoping to accommodate guests attending a national convention Vigan is hosting next month.
Nagtawag po ako ng karpintero para ho tentative munang i-check po. Pero mas mabuti ho yun, compliance po namin ng city.
But City Hall says there's so much to cover. With limited personnel, it also has to examine hundreds of other commercial establishments as well as government buildings like schools and even museums.
Kung pwede silang mag-hire or kumuha ng mga structural engineer to certify that the building is safe and sound to occupy already.
This hotel has hired the services of private technical experts to do the quake damage assessment and skip the line waiting for the City Hall inspection. Once they get their safety clearance, they can resume operations. Charmaine plans to do the same. Despite finding no visible damage in her inn, she won't reopen until she gets the go signal.
Dahil kung may mangyari po sa mga guests, malaki hong responsibilidad namin.
While several antiquated structures now in ruins following Wednesday's massive quake, many centuries-old houses appear to have withstood the violent shaking even with the recurring aftershocks.
Pero 7.1 is at force majeure, no? And to say that they're still standing is makasasabi natin na they were constructed well.
Now, officials here are asking national agencies and even international organizations to help Vigan's beloved heritage district not only to become operational again, but also to protect it against future disasters. Pia.
David Santos there reporting from Ilocos Sur. More stories coming up. A former presidential advisor pointing fingers at the health department over the expiration of billions of pesos worth of COVID-19 vaccines bought by the private sector. And days after the fatal shooting at the Ateneo de Manila University, the father of the suspect was gunned down outside his home in Basilan. Details when Newsnight returns.
Toyota's global leasing service gives you the freedom to move, to go where you want, the freedom to be productive, freedom to pursue your passion. Kinto One, powered by Toyota, lets you choose how you drive your life, giving you the freedom to enjoy what matters most. The freedom to drive worry-free is yours. Kinto One. Subscribe and drive.
It can be dangerous out there. Buti na lang there's locally super fruits with 3 kinds of fruits that are super in many ways. First, there's our dragon fruit drink na mayaman sa prebiotics that aid digestion. Second, there's our passion fruit drink with no added sugar and high in vitamin C. Lastly, we have our mangosteen drink, good for your heart. All superfruits contain more antioxidants than your average fruit to help protect your immune system. Superfruit for super you.
Fried chicken? Timplang happy! With easy-to-cook Magnolia Chicken Timplados. Iba't ibang sarap ng chicken, kaya. Anong Magnolia Chicken Timplados mo? Iba't ibang easy chicken sarap.
Making life sweet is easy dahil 35 pesos SRP lang ang San Miguel flavored beer. Make life sweet with San Miguel flavored beer.
Baby, I'm home! Happy as best ako kapag listo at ganado siyang kumain. Happy and healthy siya sa NutriChunks. Recommended by my vet. NutriChunks is the only one with active boost and prebiotics na pampalisto. Made with real meat and fortified pa with essential nutrients that help keep him strong, healthy, and happy. Listo ganado sa NutriChunks.
Life is many things. It's messy, but the kind of mess we love. Sometimes it's predictable, and sometimes it isn't. But there's always a way. And it's full of surprises. Introducing the next-gen Ford Everest. Life is yours to master.
With more infrastructures in place, like airports, expressways, and those hard-to-reach areas, even the smallest or the micro businesses such as us would grow in terms of faster and efficient services and being able to deliver to more customers and being able to also reach out to more communities.
Infrastructure projects of San Miguel will enable greater connectivity and encourage further development in rural areas and decongest major cities for better mobility. By moving more people more efficiently, San Miguel helps the economy by making its citizens more productive. Less time spent traveling will translate to increased economic activities.
Welcome back. The father of the suspect in the shooting at the Ateneo de Manila University in Quezon City shot dead in the city of Lamitan in Basilan. Lamitan police say Rolando Yumol was gunned down outside his home at around 6:30 in the morning. The incident comes 5 days after his son, Chao Tiao Yumol, opened fire inside the Ateneo campus in what appeared to be an assassination of former Lamitan Mayor Rose Furigay. But authorities say it's still too early to establish a link between the two incidents. Chao Tiao Yumol is currently in the custody of Quezon City Police. Over 5 billion pesos worth of COVID-19 vaccines bought by the private sector now expired. A former advisor of the previous administration's pandemic response associates this with failure to mobilize vaccine supplies. Caroline Bonkin reports.
Moderna, we will have to let go of about 3.6 million. AstraZeneca, about 623,000.
After the country struggled to get COVID-19 vaccines halfway through the pandemic, the private sector now has to dispose over 4 million AstraZeneca and Moderna doses expiring this July. Former Task Force Against COVID-19 advisor Ted Herbosa blames the Health Department for failing to mobilize resources this pandemic. He says the Health Technology Assessment Council, or HTAC, should have been faster in approving the use of available shots. DOH relies on HTAC's guidance to give vaccines.
You had the resources and you're not going to use them because of lack of evidence. Yet our vaccine expert panel said, yes, we can use them.
Health advocate Tony Leachon questions HTAC's recent approval for the second booster shot for 50 years old and up, when the US CDC already allowed it in March.
Na-flag na yung waning immunity sometime in February or March.
Former presidential advisor Joey Concepcion also raising the same issue. He says they've been appealing for expanding the coverage since May. Concepcion led the private sector in buying millions of vaccines, of which half were donated to the government. But Concepcion says it's time to move forward.
Despite some frustrations on our part, I think we should look at the bright spot. We have been able to reach this point whereby the economy has totally opened. Tourism is back.
He laments the health secretary should have been on top in maximizing every single drop of vaccine.
Maybe we could avoid something like this from happening again.
A DOH Technical Advisory Group member says the timing of HTAC's decision on who may get vaccinated shouldn't be blamed for the expired doses.
Kung hindi, dahil nagkaroon tayo ng gaps doon sa pagro-roll out or pagtanggap ng mga tao for their first dose, for the primary series, for their first booster.
In a statement, HTAC said it makes recommendations based on scientific evidence, and expiration is not enough reason to push for vaccines. HTAC says it looks at safety, efficacy, and cost-effectiveness of vaccines. Caroline Bongkin, CNN Philippines.
For the third time this month, President Bongbong Marcos vetoes a bill ratified by both houses of Congress. Lawmakers say they respect Mr. Marcos's decision, while an analyst explains a new president's veto sends a strong message. Amor Santos has that story.
Less than a month in office, President Bongbong Marcos has already vetoed 3 bills passed by the previous Congress. Even his sister, Senator Amy Marcos, wondered why the president rejected the Bulacan Airport Special Economic Zone and Freeport. He also refused to enact the strengthening of the Office of the Government Corporate Council. And recently, he blocked the expansion of the franchise area of an Aboitiz-owned firm, the Davao Light and Power Company. The grant would have rolled out cheaper and better electricity for the Davao region, according to Senate Public Services Committee Chairperson Grace Poe. Contrary to Marcos's message, Poe says the bill does not violate the Constitution or any other law. The president called it a collateral attack on the franchise area of the North Davao Electric Cooperative or Nordeco. But Poe says it's actually a response to Nordeco customers' clamor for better power service. She adds it's now up to the House of Representatives to refile the measure. Senate Majority Leader Joel Villanueva says the chamber respects the president's decision but stands firm that it has done its job. According to a political science professor who served as an economic planning director in the Senate for 15 years, a new president is sending a strong message to proponents and stakeholders when he vetoes a bill.
Parang ayoko yan, parang ganun ang ibig sabihin, di ba? Pwede kasing pag naglapso into lang, you can you can always say that, hey, that was not discussed during the session. Using the power available to him to pursue his agenda or how he perceives some things must be legislated.
Professor Jean Franco says there are now mechanisms in place allowing Marcos to talk to Congress about the legislative mill and prevent bills from being vetoed.
Wala siyang means niyan when he was not yet president. He did not have any control over the trajectory of this proposal.
Congress can still override the president's veto by a 2/3 vote of the members of each house. The Senate leadership is now calling for the convening of the Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council or LEDAC, which advises the president on policy making, as well as the Presidential Legislative Liaison Office, which coordinates with Congress. Amor Santos, CNN Philippines.
The Marcos administration faces the challenge of addressing a hunger and nutrition problem exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic and rising fuel prices. Senior correspondent Ruth Cabal tells us how hunger affects the country's development in part 2 of this special report.
From green leafy vegetables to herbal plants and edible flowers, this community garden in Quezon City has it all. To think that when the pandemic hit 2 years ago, families here in Payatas didn't know how they would survive.
Paano ba mariresolba yung gutom? Lumabas sa meeting namin na kailangan nating magtanim ng organikong pagkain kasi mahal ang bilihin, hindi makalabas, walang trabaho.
Ofelia Bagotlo says the local government sponsored seedlings and gardening tools and sent an agriculturist to train them. They can now enjoy their own farm-to-table meals for free.
Meron akong kangkong tsaka tanglad. Gagawin ko tong adobo with tokwa at saka oyster sauce, isang gulayan na, kasama ang tuyo.
The community also sells vegetables to other residents and small markets in the area, earning as much as 5,000 pesos a month. Urban agriculture is among the major components of the Agriculture Department's Plant program. Launched in 2020, the agency has held more than 900 training sessions and set up over 4,500 farms and gardens.
Yung logistics cost po natin medyo mababawasan. Siyempre, hindi mo na siya kailangang i-ship ng malayo, hindi ka nagagasto sa crudo, sa gasolina. Yung safety ng ating ipoproduce, we can create a healthy lifestyle.
President Bongbong Marcos, who is also Agriculture Secretary, acknowledged in his first State of the Nation address a possible food supply crisis. He vows to boost food production by helping farmers with loans, land payments and acquisition, and post-harvest facilities.
One of the main drivers of our push for growth and employment will be in the agricultural sector. Ang mga pautang at financial assistance sa mga magbubukid at mangingisda ay magiging institusyon at patakaran ng aking administrasyon.
But it's a daunting task from where previous administrations left off. A 2021 World Bank study shows the Philippines is among 10 countries in the world with the highest number of stunted children. 1 in 3 Filipino children is small in size relative to the age. The Nutrition Council says this indicates hunger or chronic lack of food.
Bumababa yung IQ, no? And then yung iba hindi na nakakatapos, no? Yung sa school, contributory 'yan sa nila productivity and overall, no, economic development. Pag sa household level, di ko konti ang sweldo, so magiging cycle.
The World Bank says the Philippines has a human capital index of 0.52, which means that the future productivity of a child born today will be half of what could have been achieved if he or she was healthy and completed education. Economic loss was estimated at $4.4 billion, mostly from foregone earnings as a result of low productivity and high healthcare costs. Experts say focusing on food security is a significant step, but this must be combined with equitable access to proper education, healthcare, and other basic services. Ruth Cabal, CNN Philippines.
When we return from Kill This Love to Ready for Love, we give you a look at Blackpink's latest music video next. Keep it here on CNN Philippines.
My faith in God led me to all these blessings. Kaya ako, all out sa lahat ng bigay ng Panginoon.
Many Filipinos lose their lives every day to chronic diseases like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, as well as cancer. In fact, the World Health Organization reported that they take almost 300,000 lives every year. But experts claim that eating well is one of the top things that you can do to manage these diseases as well as its symptoms. So what should your diet really consist of? How much fruit and vegetables should you take every day? On the program today, we'll talk about how Filipinos living with chronic diseases can eat better and enjoy it as well. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. A big reason many of us are so vulnerable to chronic diseases is an unhealthy diet. According to the WHO, over 90% of Filipinos don't reach the recommended amount of fruit and vegetables per day. On top of that, many Filipinos settle for food higher in calories and lower in nutritional value. With us is Ms. Bea Mariola Recuerdo. She's an accredited nutritionist of the Singapore Nutrition and Dietetics Association. We're also joined by Dr. Caroline Narvacan Montano. She's an endocrinologist and the president of the Philippine Society of Endocrinology, Diabetes, and Metabolism. Now, chronic diseases are conditions that last for a long time, years even. The solution that is permanent is often challenging, but a healthy diet can go a long way in managing these chronic diseases. And among these are diabetes. According to the Department of Health, 1 in 14 Filipino adults are living with diabetes. Dr. Carol, what exactly is the problem with those with diabetics? What is it about their bodies wherein their diet has to be tailor-fit for their condition?
Usually there are two types. We have the type 1 and the type 2. Usually the type 1 diabetes are those diabetic patients who their pancreatic beta cells have been destroyed by immune reaction. It may not be related to the food intake of the patient. However, the type 2 diabetic patients would be those patients who develop hyperglycemia because of insulin resistance, increase in weight, and having a sedentary lifestyle, causing too much fat that would or saturated fat or even trans fat.
So diet also plays a big factor here, katulad din sinabi ni Dr. Carol. Today, we're talking about the best diets to protect against some of the most common diseases. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk. Earlier, we discussed the prevalence of diabetes and high blood pressure here in the country. These two conditions can lead to problems sa puso natin, which is the leading cause of death here as well as around the world. Dr. Carol, pag-usapan natin yon. How can all of these chronic diseases really eventually affect yung cardiovascular system ng isang tao kapag hindi ito naagapan, hindi ito hininto?
Now, if diet will not play a big role in terms of its control, all of these diseases can really progress and have the complications that we don't want to have our patients to have. We always advise our patients that even if we have a lot of medicines in the market, these medicines will not work if we don't have diet and exercises together with the management of their chronic diseases.
Is there a time where pwedeng sabihin, wala na, this is too late, masyado na ako matagal with this chronic disease to see any improvement?
There's no limit to the time. Even at any stage of the disease, you can still incorporate diet. Now, if, for example, you are on the stage that you are already on the malnourished side because of the complications, diet would still play a role, and it would be on another spectrum where you're going now to improve and give healthy choices so that you can further reduce the chances of paglala of the complications.
And the most important behavioral factor that can lead to a cardiovascular disease, apart from tobacco use and physical inactivity, is your diet. Now, Bea, what is the connection between a healthy heart as well as eating well? Please explain that to us.
It depends on the nutrition na nakukuha sa diet. So, it would be best if a person who already has heart problems would be eating foods that are high in fiber, low-fat products, lean meat, and focusing more on eating a balanced diet that consists of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. So, para ma-maintain yung heart health ng katawan.
What should we incorporate into our diet, and give us some tips in order to make this an easier endeavor or an easier journey for a lot of our viewers?
There will be 4 types of food that will make us be very high risk to develop these chronic diseases. Those will be high processed carbohydrates, sugar sweetened beverages. We have saturated and trans fat and the red and processed meat. So I guess if we're going to take this all in moderation, and we can actually prevent ourselves from having these chronic diseases. So limit lang. It's more of the limitation and fighting it off also with exercises.
If you talk about moderation, is it better to cut it completely, or is taking it in moderation like a treat, parang consuelo na lang, but is it better to cut that completely from your diet?
Now, the plate method, we can actually introduce this plate method. So why am I saying that we can have this type of food in moderation, because in the plate method, you're going to divide your plate into half of it will be in the vegetables, half of the plate will be divided into complex carbohydrate and the fat.
Now, just as high blood pressure and diabetes can lead to cardiovascular diseases, it can also put you at risk of kidney disease. It's the 7th leading cause of death here in the Philippines. Dr. Carol, pag-usapan naman natin ngayon ang kidneys natin. What is happening kapag someone has a chronic kidney disease?
We've noted that there's an increased risk or increased rise of chronic kidney diseases due to diabetes. And primarily it's because not just due to the uncontrolled hyperglycemia, but also because of too much salt intake of our patients. So I am more introducing that with the high salt intake, our patients can have an elevation of their blood pressure. Now, together with an uncontrolled glucose or uncontrolled sugar, that will be very, very hard for the kidneys to manage. Hence, they can really develop into chronic kidney disease.
Salt is also one of the main ingredients in food that gives it taste, that makes it enjoyable for people. So my question for you is it possible to put salt at a very minimum or even take away salt altogether but still enjoy food?
Yes, it is still possible. So usually I recommend that my patients would focus more on herbs and spices when it comes to flavoring their food. It's still possible to cook local dishes like adobo, salpicao, and tapa by using herbs and spices to improve the flavor and still retain the quality ng lasa ng pagkain.
Are a lot of these chronic diseases we see nowadays, could this be traced back to the patient's childhood? How food was introduced to them? What was seen as normal for them?
One of the primary root problems here in our country is the increasing trend of overweight and obesity among children. Now, what brought this out? Could this is second sedentary lifestyle of the kids, plus the food that their palate got so used to. Sobrang flavorful, but it's more of the flavor of the salt that they are so used to, more to the flavor of the sugar or sweet that they are used to. That's why they may increase their weight, and together with a sedentary or no activity, then they will have overweight, obesity, and that's it. That's the risk. And then they'll have the early chronic diseases, even at the young age.
So at an early age, teach your kids how to eat properly, and they'll reap the benefits years on end. Coming up, we'll talk about the best diet for people living with cancer. Your health is our mission here on MedTalk Health Talk. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is MedTalk Health Talk. Here on the show, we always stress the importance of a healthy diet in protecting your health. It's key in managing diseases that can affect our quality of life, including cancer. Now, Dr. Carol, let's talk about cancer and that of diet. Not necessarily, we're not talking about causality here, but those diagnosed with cancer, how important is a proper diet for someone living with cancer?
We don't want our patients to develop malnutrition, especially during treatment. If they are malnourished, then they'll not be able to have energy to fight off together with the chemotherapeutic drugs and together with the medications that we also give for our cancer patients. So of course, just the same, we also highlight the fact that they should not be malnourished. We nourish them with high fiber, we nourish them with healthy diet.
Could you give some concrete examples ng mga foods na high in fiber?
Fruits, okay, so for this one kasi kailangan maingat yung sa food preparation and dapat malinis talaga kasi sensitive din yung patient and we have to focus din dun sa immune system ng patient. So may importante din yung sa food preparation and sa cleanliness. Pero for that, yung mga basic na pagkain ng Pinoy like yung mga pinakpit, chop suey, pwede natin siyang iserve for them.
Now, Bea, in terms of maximizing the nutritive content or the nutritive benefits of these foods, what do you suggest when it comes to preparing them? When it comes to cooking, when it comes to adding heat to certain foods, are we robbing the certain nutrients of this? Kapag ang fruit ginawang juice, natatanggal ba ang fiber na benefit dito ng mga fruits?
For the cooking part, yes, maganda din na nabanggit yung sensitivity to heat. So maganda kasi kung na-retain pa din yung freshness ng vegetable, hindi yun talagang lantang-lanta, it's not too soft. So it would be best if there is still a crunch when it comes to cooking the vegetable as parang indicator na hindi na overcook yung vegetable and hindi nawala yung mga certain nutrients na kailangan ma-retain. And when it comes to fruits, yes, it would be best if the fruit is eaten as a whole fruit. But if the patient also prefers juiced or mga pureed na fruit, it would also be good kasi for patients with cancer, they are a bit sensitive to taste and they may lack appetite. So it would be best if we could take into consideration their food preferences when preparing their food.
Now, Dr. Carol, nowadays, marami talagang diet trends ang nakikita everywhere. The paleo diet, the ketogenic diet, the vegan diet even. And now, all of these diets, in your opinion, what should be the basic mindset of someone who wants to adopt a certain diet to maximize health benefits?
The type of diet that has been recognized by the American Diabetes Association, by the American Heart Association would still be the Mediterranean diet. And this would be an increased intake of vegetables, moderation of fruits, and of course, less or almost none of the saturated fat, of course, the lessening of the processed food, and of course, the red meat.
When it comes to these chronic diseases that we mentioned here, is there a common factor amongst all of them that the viewers should be aware of? In particular here, is it the high salt content of certain foods that are detrimental to those with chronic diseases like this? Is it the high fat cholesterol?
That would be the highly processed carbohydrate and of course the high salt intake. So if we will be able to lower this down and then together with exercise, then we can have longer life, healthy lifestyle.
Now, Bea, before we go, do you have any tips for our viewers about maintaining a healthy diet intake?
It's okay to eat certain types of food as long as you eat it in moderation. Variety, so as much as possible, variety of fruits and vegetables. If you could eat the rainbow, a different color of fruits and vegetables, that would be best. And of course, balance when it comes to diet, 80% diet and 20% exercise to maintain a healthy lifestyle.
And of course, Dr. Carol, before we go, any important tips for our viewers?
For us endocrinologists, we teach our patients to follow the Pinggang Pinoy. And because the Pinggang Pinoy can guide us what the real foods that we should be seeing among our plates.
With that, thank you very much, Ms. Bea Mariola Recuerdo and Dr. Caroline Narvacan Montano for being with us here today and sharing your expertise. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and we'll see you again next time here on MedTalk Health Talk.